You're listening to the Jan Price Show, all about movies. And today, my guest is director, producer, writer Carlyle Eubank. And we're going to be talking about this wonderful new film of his entitled Broke. Welcome to the show, Carlyle. You're so welcome. So let's talk. You've got a great cast. This is an unbelievable cast. Beautifully done. I mean, it really is beautifully done. It reminds me a lot of The Revenant. I'm sure you're getting comparisons to The Revenant with this film. But let's talk about, you wrote it and you directed it. This is your first time directing, but you've worked in the film industry for quite a long time.
Right.
Why this story? What was it that sparked this story of Broke? And even there's that. Let's also tell the audience, before we get into why the story, of what the synopsis of Broke, what it is, so people understand what we're talking about.
Yeah, the way I sort of describe it succinctly is it's about a cowboy who wakes up in the middle of a blizzard and has no idea how he got there. And he only has what's in his truck and trailer to sort of get by and survive. And he's in pretty rough shape, so he's dipping in and out of consciousness. And as sort of he dips out, we sort of see these like broken little vignettes of his life, his fading rodeo career, his family life, just all the kinds of context and backstory for how he got into this mess, you know. So that's the sort of top line what the story's about. But as far as, you know, why I wrote it or how I came up with it, I wrote this probably 10 or 11 years ago, and a big sort of meditation in my life at the time was, and still is, frankly, but at the time especially, was, what am I going to do with my life? And am I on the right path? And, did I make the right choices? Just kind of all that young adult stuff. And so as I, was sort of thinking about those things, I just kind of started to grab from my personal life, growing up around farming and cowboying and rodeo, which was sort of my context and my just sort of my surround. It just started to populate this story, which was really a meditation on who we are and where we're going and what choices we made to get where we are, and yeah, just all those big existential questions, I guess.
So you wrote it 10 years ago, and then have you been trying to get it made for 10 years, or did you shelve it for a little while and then decide to pull it out and try to get it made?
It's been a long, steady push. And yeah, it definitely felt like trying to roll that rock up the hill for a lot of it. But no, it never was really shelved. It was always in some stage of development. And yeah, it's been a very challenging movie. It's like life imitates art. It's the main character's going through a really challenging period in his life, and it was sort of, I think, reflected by just the challenge of getting this movie made. Whether it was finding people to help produce a movie, or finding the right cast, or production itself was extremely challenging, on a limited budget. Yeah, just the whole thing. I mean, I could tell you lots of stories about the challenges. I mean, they're not all unique to my movie. I mean, independent filmmaking is that way, but there are, I think, a lot of very unique struggles on this one, just because of the subject matter and what we needed to do on a small budget to make it feel very real.
And it has a big screen feel. There's no doubt about that. It definitely has a big screen feel to it. Okay, so let's talk about the cast, because you've got, Wyatt Russell, who is excellent in this role. It seems like it was tailor-made for him. It really does. It just felt like this was his role, for no doubt about it. You have Mary McDonnell, Oscar-nominated actress. from Dances with Wolves. Tom Skerritt, who I've always have enjoyed watching, and then you have Dennis Quaid, who is also perfect in this role. He plays the father of Wyatt Russell, and they just seem again like they're perfect for one another. So, how did you attract? Because this is a stellar cast, no question about it. How did you, with this being your directorial debut, nonetheless, and an independent film, which is always hard, as we all know, to get financing? How did you attract this cast?
I think the word that I heard kind of crop up um, most commonly was just authenticity. I think people read it and any kind of apprehension they may have had about the size of the budget or the fact I'd never directed a movie before, I think was sort of it was outweighed by just the authenticity they felt on the page. And I think that was a big first step for most of them. Most of them read it, kind of was like, whoa, this feels very real. Like I'd like to talk to Carlyle. And then I think our ensuing conversations uh, kind of made them feel very comfortable that I was an expert on the subject matter. So yeah, again, any kind of questions they may have had about my expertise as a filmmaker, I think they felt, well, at the very least, this is going to feel very real because, he's going to be looking in the monitor and judging whether it matches reality or not. Um, so I think it was just the authenticity of it. And I have been writing screenplays for, again, like 15 years. So I have kind of honed that craft enough to know how to write a good screenplay. So I think just my experience as a screenwriter plus my grasp of the subject matter was initially how I hooked anybody that came aboard.
So, did you have when you decided to do the casting? Did you have help with our from your neighbor and my friend?
Did I have help?
Yeah, with the casting.
No, 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 no. The casting, so for Wyatt was the first one to get involved. He he got the screenplay through a mutual friend, and I think he had read a couple other of my screenplays over the years, and he'd always complimented my work, but he read that one and he knew that I was trying to get it made myself as a director. And yeah, he sent me a very enthusiastic, passionate text about just, you know, I can tell you really know what you're talking about here, but it's just like I feel like I'm this guy. I know this character. And I think a lot of his own personal history with hockey, professional hockey, and the injuries that he'd had there, and then having to kind of pivot and go a different direction in his life. Yeah, it just became clear like we don't have to go create this character. It's just kind of like settling into what you really deeply know and have already meditated on in life. And that was kind of the risk we were taking. I mean, he was taking a risk on me as a first-time director, and then as a director, first-time director, you just don't know how things are really going to translate when you get onto set and you start rolling, and it just seemed to fit. Everything just always felt very organic and real, and it kind of almost messes with your frame of your judgment because again, I didn't have a baseline to compare anything to. And so I just I remember the sensation throughout the filmmaking process or the production when we're shooting of just going like, "Gosh, it just feels real to me. I don't know, like I think it's pretty good, but and then of course we're cutting the film and sharing it with people and it's became very clear like, yeah, Wyatt had done a really tremendous job and those feelings it had on set were validated, which is nice.
Yeah, as I said, it's tailor made for him. It really is a tailor made script for him for sure. So he was the first one. He isn't he one of the producers too? on the film?
Correct. Yeah. And that a willingness of him to not only say, I want to star in and carry this film on screen, but like, helping get it made because we didn't have financing at the time when he came aboard. So, he was really involved in getting the movie off the ground, and using his agent to find other cast and so yeah, he was instrumental in not just, you know, the creative process, but also the kind of more nuts and bolts producing process for sure.
So then who came on next after you had Wyatt sign on? Who was the next actor or actress?
Dennis came aboard next, and again, I received a very nice voicemail from Dennis saying, "Man, it was just such a real script, and it's one of the best scripts I've read in a while, and I would just love. I'm going to be in your neck of the woods. Can we meet up?" So we actually met up, and we actually went out and we rode horses together, and that was a lot of fun. It was a nice way to bond and to sort of size each other up, I guess. I mean, not in sort of like a negative way, but just like we're meeting each other for the first time, and it's a big deal for me because Dennis is, such a larger than life kind of guy, and I'm such a fan of so many of his movies. But yeah, he was so comfortable around horses and that world that it felt like a good fit. And I think when people if they're kind enough to watch the movie, they'll I think really appreciate just how subtle Dennis can be. Because I think he gave a very sort of nuanced, quiet performance in the movie that that just makes you feel like, man, this guy feels like he could be a hay farmer.
Exactly, exactly. As I said, it's really well done. And then you have Mary McDonnell playing Wyatt's mother and Dennis Quaid's wife. Was she next on the list?
Yeah, I after that, I wish I remembered the casting process after Wyatt and Dennis, who were the first two. The casting process, happened very quickly, and I'm not sure the exact like order because I think probably it was cast, within a short period of time, but in very sort of rapid succession. I'd spoken to Mary and I spoke to Tom Skerritt. And again, the common denominator was just, how much they loved the script and how real it felt, and that they wanted to be part of it. And what was great was a lot of them were very gracious in acknowledging, like, look, we understand, like, maybe my supporting part isn't the sort of biggest part in terms of page count or number of lines, but this is a movie that's about True, and his story is so compelling. Like, we just want to be there to kind of support that. And you maybe don't always appreciate how much like a good supporting cast makes all the difference because if things are uneven and you have like your main guy just delivering a really really solid performance, but then you have supporting cast that is uneven or maybe not giving as much or whatever, uh that can really throw people out of the movie. But we had such incredible supporting cast that yeah, I feel like you don't really drop out of the film going like, whoa, that was a kind of an aberration, like everyone was just so strong and giving such great sort of, even if they weren't speaking, they were doing a lot, with their eyes or their looks or their reactions. So yeah. And of course I think one of the real gems in the movie is Auden, the gal Auden Thornton who plays Wyatt's love interest. I just think she's extremely good actress and really filled that role out well.
She did, and they do have some, good chemistry in the film. But you're completely right. If the supporting cast isn't up to the level of the rest of the cast, it can make a big difference when you're watching the film. But you have such a professional cast and people who've been doing this for long, long, long time who know what they're doing, and you're right. These were smaller roles for them, but very significant, very important roles. So, kudos to your casting director for pulling in this great cast for sure. So you filmed this in Montana, and you filmed it in the snow. So let's talk about that. I mean, here you are, a first time director, and you're tackling, I mean, water and snow are the two that most directors try to avoid if they can avoid them. I've heard it from many directors like, you really want to, might not want to do this on the water,
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I mean, Steven Spielberg, advised Christopher Nolan not to do Dunkirk because of how hard it is to film on the water. So, and then I'm sure that I can't remember the director who did The Revenant right now off the top of my head, but anyhow, I'm sure.
Inaru too, maybe.
Yeah. And Naruto, yes. He would have probably said the same thing to you. So let's talk about that, because I'm sure that had to be one of the more difficult parts of filming this movie, is filming in the snow.
Yes. But maybe in ways that people might not expect, because the movie calls for nasty weather. And so you like that's the assignment then, is to have the worst weather possible. So in a way, the worse the weather was when we shot in Montana, the happier I was, because I just felt like, okay, like we can't create this. We're not going to be able to do anything like with CG, and we don't have time. We don't have contingency days. We don't have time. So we have like, you know, 10 days in the winter to nail this nasty blizzard. So that's what we need. And a lot of it is just luck that we got really bad weather. We had like a polar vortex and it was negative 25 and cameras were freezing, and your star is getting buried in snow and he's just miserable. We don't have star trailers, like, the people between takes are just sitting in their cars idling, with the heater turned on, and it was super challenging. And we're also very, very rural. Like it wasn't like we found a field 10 minutes outside of Bozeman. It was like we were an hour from a medium to small size city in Montana. So you're an hour from an already small town with no cell service. We shot in a area called the Big Hole, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's just a big, empty, vast landscape, which is so gorgeous. Like it just, when we were scouting and we drove there, I was like, this is it. This is the location that we will plant the stake in and build the whole movie around, because there's this great sort of crumbling old set of stockyards that I believe the cavalry used a long time ago to sort horses and mules and cattle in. But it's all still there. It's all these old lodgepole pines that make up these great pens. I mean, when people see the movie, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But it's so great because it's just made out of these old, like I said, like pine trees. But it's all kind of still there, but it's kind of just sort of time has had its way with it. But beyond that is just nothing for as far as the eye can see, except distant mountains. So yeah, we built the whole movie kind of around that location and found locations near that location, because I knew that opening shot where Wyatt, wakes up, it just needed to be, it needed to really kind of, you couldn't undersell that. So you needed A, a great location, and B, you really needed the bad, nasty, horrible weather to accompany it. So yeah, the weather was as bad as it looks, and that was very challenging because, it's a lot of discomfort and it's a lot of nerves and it's a lot of technical issues. But the flip side is, if it had been good weather, we wouldn't work. It would just, I don't even know what would have happened.
You needed the bad weather for sure,
We
because
did,
that's
and
what the movie's about.
actually,
I mean, a
when
character.
I was driving out to make the movie, and I'm just thinking, all right, what are like the big problems? Like, what are my worst nightmares doing this particular sequence of the movie? And the number one thing was good weather. So, like, the contingency for that was if we get skunked and one day it should be bad weather, or one scene is bad, excuse me, is good weather, like, what do we do? So I kind of built into it a few locations that were in heavy shadow so that if the sky was blue, we could move to a place with heavy shadow to at least give the illusion of, um, that there's still cloud cover and storm. So I think we had that happen once and we used our one of those locations and it worked out fine. And, in the end, probably no one would ever notice. But yeah, the good weather was actually my biggest fear.
Is that funny?
I
It would be
know.
the opposite.
I know. I
For
know.
sure.
How many days did it take you to film this? And do you mind if I ask you what the budget was?
Yeah, no. I think all in officially there were probably 27 days, but then we added a few days on the weekends where we would just kind of go, I don't want to say rogue, but like you had like unofficial days where we'd go shoot at the actual rodeos. So I think it bumped it up to closer to maybe 30 days of shooting. I don't exactly know, but it's something around 30. I'll just say 30, give or take. And then the budget, I think all in was just over 2 million.
Wow.
So, so it was not a big budget. I mean, again, that's a lot of money, no doubt. And I was definitely given what I needed, but there was not a cent more than what I was, that I needed. So we stretched on this one big time. But yeah, it was not a casual, take your time, get as many takes and angles as you possibly can, type of movie. It was definitely a movie where you had to think on your feet and sort of go with the flow. Actually, some like pretty sort of like unavoidable scheduling stuff forced us to move up the second schedule of the movie when we went back in July. And so we had to move everything up. Um, and we couldn't avoid it. We ran the risk of just the movie dying if we didn't accommodate it. So I actually ended up not having any prep really on the second sequence. I had like a week to prep when we went back.
Is that the
Uh,
rodeo scene?
all the stuff with the farming, the family, the rodeo, like the bulk of the movie, I ended up only having like a week to prep. So that was a lot of just again thinking on my feet with my DP and my first AD with scheduling and just, people, yeah, just being flexible and just like going for it.
Yeah. And again, when you're working on such a tight budget and such a tight schedule, having true professionals, who are, that makes all the difference in the world because then you don't have to worry about them doing take over take, many, many takes. They know what they're doing. They can hit the ground running and do it.
Yeah, when your first take is like correct, I don't, you know what I mean? Like you just go, well, yeah, that's the thing. Then you just feel like your bases are covered and then your confidence level goes up. And then if your confidence levels goes up as the director, everybody else around you feels more confident. And yeah, then at that point it's more fun than it is nerve-wracking because you can do a variation on it. You can let the actor try something a little different or whatever. Like if you're getting additional takes, it's not to try to get it right. It's to just sort of see if there's something else there.
Right. And that's how Clint Eastwood films. He likes to do one take, move on.
Cover your bases and maybe one for them or whatever. But
Right,
yeah,
right.
I mean, look, I'm no Clint Eastwood, but you still
You're young.
you felt but
You have lots of time. You can be.
oh man, if only. But the yeah, you just want to get that one take where you're like, all right, we're good. If nothing else happens here, I feel covered going into the edit. And so that's sort of the process for me was just like you're just adding tiny, tiny, tiny solid layers every day.
Right.
And that's all I was trying to do is just go, man, we're baking this really delicate kind of pastry and you just want to get all those really nice layers in there and you don't want any big gaps or you don't want things to collapse on each other. So that's all you're trying to do is just do like a little bit of solid work every day.
That's wonderful. We have to go, unfortunately. But I have two questions. One, are you working on something right now?
I not to direct. I mean, I do have projects that I would love to direct. Those are not like, those are not in development per se, but hopefully they will be soon. But again, I'm a working screenwriter, so I do have three or four things that I am working on in that realm. Not the most exciting answer, but it's the honest answer.
That's great. That's great. You have several
Yeah,
things you're working
yeah.
on. The other
Yes,
thing,
I am very grateful to find work.
Yes, yes. In this business, definitely. So yes. So that's as long as you can continue to work in this industry, you're way ahead of the game. So let me ask you also, where can people see Broke? When and where is it coming out, and where can people see it?
Yeah, Broke is out and it's on any streaming platform where you can buy or rent. So Apple TV, Amazon Prime, Fandango, Google Play, anywhere that you can rent or buy a movie, you can find Broke.
Great. Well, everybody seek out Broke. It's really well done. Great performances. Fascinating, different story than one we normally see. So that's always good. You like something that's unique and different, and it does. It feels. It's a big. It should be seen on the big movie screen if you can, if that's possible to see it, or at least the biggest screen you have at home. So, but much success, Carlyle, with Broke. I really think it's a wonderful film, and especially since it's your freshman feature. So you've done an excellent job. So I look forward to having you back on the show with your next project.
Yeah, me too. I look forward to coming back. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.